achieved.
I totally get it, but it's still frustrating as hell. You know, the Brock Lesnar thing, the UFC's struggling. UFC's had a couple events here, UFC 225 and UFC 226, as far as I can see, where they've been good, solid MMA events with good, you know, at least promising, with good fights in the card, and neither one of them done exceptionally well. And that has to be a little bit scary for the UFC. I can understand when they're lower level cards, or when pay-per-views with maybe a less hyped main event and a weak undercard don't do quite as well. But we had some heavyweight title fights, a super fight here. We had a couple good fights on the previous pay-per-view, and it didn't sell. And I think the UFC is starting to realize it's not necessarily to make those next level bucks. It's not necessarily the quality of the fight, it's the name in the fight. It might be a crap fight. People want to tune in and see a crap fight with a fighter who's, you know, draws attention, as opposed to seeing, hey, the number 1 and number 2 guy at featherweight go at it. Because for the committed MMA fan like myself, and like I'm assuming most of you who are out there listening to my show, you know, you are hyped for Ortega versus Holloway. You were disappointed when it got canceled. The average person goes, who? I don't know either one of these. It's Brock fucking Lesnar. I know Brock fucking Lesnar. That's who I want to see, and that's where they get the extra dollars, and that's what the UFC looks at right now. Because you look at the integrity of the sport, and it's taking a massive hit. Brock versus DC. Ugh. You know, first, Stipe Miocic, the most successful heavyweight in the history of the heavyweight division, not getting an instant rematch. Especially when you consider not one but 2 eye pokes. And again, people are going to say, oh, but it happened. It happened. So 2 eye pokes, and then Stipe gets knocked out. That sucks. DC, all the credit in the world for him for going up and taking that shot. I think Stipe deserves an immediate rematch, but he's getting overlooked for Brock Lesnar. Curtis Blades, the guy is on fire right now, and he's beating the guys that recently beat Brock, or Brock fought and couldn't take out, like Alistair Overeem, you know, I think Mark Hunt, obviously the no contest, but still, it's no contest. You fucked up because of drugs. Curtis Blades being overlooked as well as a legitimate contender. And now we know Brock's a cheater. We know Brock has all these issues, and we know John Jones has been called by DC, and yet DC's going to fight Brock, absolutely. And I think that's what the company's looking at. DC's a company, man, give him Brock Lesnar a winnable fight, keep him away from John Jones. But it's not just that fight. We saw Rafael Sunsao beat Rob Font, and here's a guy who's been unbelievable. He's got a 1-1 record. I think he's only lost one of his last. I can't even remember off the top of my head. It's double digits. One of his last whatever, and it was to the current champion TJ Dillashaw. He also holds a win over TJ Dillashaw in that span, and yet his name's not even being whispered. Maybe because he's not a world beater. Maybe because he's not finishing guys and covered in tattoos and calling out everybody. You know that he's not getting this opportunity. He deserves a title shot. Absolutely. I know that the division's been pretty thick, but if Marlon Moraes goes up and gets a title shot, a man that Sunsao beat, that's bullshit. As much as I'm a fan of Moraes. Then you work your way down. Michael Felder versus Perry. That was the opening fight in the prelims, but it got bumped to the pay-per-view. And Max Griffin versus Curtis Millender. Griffin beat Perry. They're fighting on the prelims. And the Griffin-Millender fight wasn't a great fight, but we didn't know that it had a lot of potential. It could have gone to the main card and said, hey, look, Griffin, you beat Perry. You should be in that spot. This weekend, Dennis Bermudez and Glenn are on the main card. And, you know, Rick Glenn is a good fighter. Dennis Bermudez is a good fighter. But Darren Elkins beat Dennis Bermudez. And he's fighting Alexander Volkanovski, a very dangerous upcoming prospect, and in a better spot than Glenn. And they're fighting on the prelims. And that's going to be a heck of a scrap. Elkins puts on, whether it's because he's getting his head stoved in and then rallying back, Elkins puts on fun fights. And yet, here's the UFC saying, hey, you beat this guy. And for a fan and for a person on the outside, it's frustrating to see such flagrant disrespect to the chain of, you know, the order of things. But for a fighter, it must be just maddening to say, hey, look, I beat this guy, and here I am on the prelims again, and he's on the main card. What do I have to do to get past him? The rankings mean jack shit, you know. And for Elkins, a guy like him, he knows the writing's on the wall. The chances of him getting a title shot are nil and none. If he can't even get a better spot on the card over a fighter he just beat, what are his chances of working towards a title shot? He'll have to beat everybody, and some of them twice. And that's bullshit. But again, that's the state of the UFC. It's losing ground. It's looking for big money fights only, and it's become an organization again. It's mirroring the WWE. It's, hey, what big name can we trot out there? And again, we heard Dana talk about, oh, we're going to be as big as the NFL. We're going to be, no, you're not. We're going to be big in Major League Baseball. No, you're not. You know, you're not a sport. You're making all kinds of money now. You're making record years, but your sales are going down, and your UFC fighters are not being looked after. Your fighters are struggling financially. A lot of them, especially the lower guys. The top guys are making good dough. Either way, it's bullshit. It's frustrating. All right, that's my rant. It's over. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. On this episode of the show, we're breaking down the upcoming UFC Fight Night 133 event, which will take place on July 14th from Boise, Idaho, and feature 6 main card fights, which I'll be breaking down for you. All of my preliminary picks, as per usual, available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Now, I'm coming off a rough stretch. I will admit it. I've struggled a little bit. I'm usually... The last couple cards I've been below or at 500 with my record slightly above, and it's just, that's not an acceptable record for a prediction record. And of course, I think I've got away from some of the things that had me doing really well at the start of the year. Again, you look back 4-7, 5-7, 7-6, 7-6, 8-4, 5-6, 8-5, 11-2. Part of that 7, you know, I've had a stretch that has been forgettable, to say the least, after having a stretch that was just fantastic. So again, I've made a couple changes to what I do, the way I look at fights again. Kind of got back to what I was doing that was successful. Eliminated a few of the things I do that I think was swaying me and changing the way I look at things. And we'll see if it pays dividends here. As per usual, the bet packs will be available, $15. And again, I'll tell you this much. In both of my recent shows, I might not have had great records, but both fights, I came down to the main event having won some money in my bet packs and needing my fighter in the main event to win and would cash huge. You know, if Brad Tavares or Stipe had won their fights, we would have cashed huge despite a poor record. So it's not like it's a oh shit, he's doing terrible. It's knocking on the door. It's just things didn't go our way in both those fights. So hey, that's what it is. We'll call it like it is, and we'll move on. They're losses. So yeah, we've got 6 fights to break down, and let's see if we can't pick a couple winners here. The first fight of the night takes place in the women's bantamweight division as the 6th-ranked Alpha Cat Zingano 9-3-0 takes on the 7th-ranked Marion, the Belizean bruiser Reneau, with a current record of 9 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw. Almost identical records for these ladies. Now, we have 2 females who are going in vastly different directions. Reneau comes into this matchup with a record of 3-0-1 in her last 4, including 3 finishes. And with the division in the state it is, and you know, you look at her and you say, if she can beat Cat Zingano, we know Nunes is headed towards a fight with Cyborg, but could Reneau work her way into a title shot? Quite possibly, she would be very close. For Zingano, she has lost 3 consecutive fights. Overall now, she was 2-3 inside the octagon. She's coming off a split decision loss to a young prospect. She does have a stoppage win over the champion, which is worth noting. And when you look at things, though, Kat is the much more marketable fighter at this point, even with her struggles. You know, she stopped Nunes in a crazy fight. She's looking for redemption after her title shot against Ronda Rousey lasted just 14 seconds. She's got a better name. Not necessarily Kat versus Marion, but she's got a better name as quality and attraction. And I would have to think the UFC is looking at this saying, if we can just get Kat a win or 2, we can line her up with Nunes when Nunes is done with Cyborg, if that happens. Physically, both women are 5'6", same 68-inch reach. Kat, though, 5 years younger. Marion is getting up there. I think she's 40 at this point. And it's interesting to note this is the first time Kat has fought twice in a year since 2010. She's been very inactive, and that could I would think that would be a good thing for her. Now, Kat has a really odd fight history. She's not consistent with being inconsistent. She's been a slow starter in fights. The Nunes fight, the Miesha Tate fight. She had a very decent start against Pena before fading. Obviously, the Ronda Rousey start was, she tried to be aggressive, and that did not work out at all. Against Ketlin Vieira, she kind of had mixed results, but put enough together to get a split decision. So she's been kind of struggled in different areas in different fights. Her best weapon, she's got some hard, low, and body kicks. She throws a decent right jab. She'll throw a right hook as well. She'll work her knees in the clinch, which is one of her things she's gained notoriety for. My biggest knock on her is just not enough consistent offense. If she can get in close, she'll look for body lock takedowns from the clinch, and if she can't, she again throws those knees in that position, and that's a good backup weapon. Hey, if I can't do one thing to you, I'm going to do another. I'm going to make this position count either way. When she fought Ketlin Vieira, she got taken down and stuck on her back. She had a similar situation against Nunes early, similar happenings against Juliana Pena in that fight, so that is a concern. She tends at times to rush forward, which exposes herself to counter strikes and throws. We saw Vieira put her on her butt and take her down. Yeah, and in that fight, there were a lot of defensive issues that I didn't like what I saw. Her chin was up, hands were down, she was backing up, she was allowing her opponent to move forward and really set the pace. And when she was punching and engaging, she was really extending and overextending and reaching on those strikes, trying to find her and having limited success. Now, for Marion Reneau, she's had some issues as well. She's called herself out and said, look, I've had issues winning rounds in fights I should win. And that results in very close fights not going her way, or fights that she should win, she needs to finish at some point because she's not putting enough points. She needs to increase her work rate. She knows that, and she recognizes that. You look at the Sarah McMahon fight. She was taken down, dominating the first round, rallied and finished her. Ultimately, she lost, and she had similar starts against Bernardo and Betch Koheda. In both those fights, she was able to rally. Koheda, she was able to, or Bernardo, she was able to finish. Koheda, she was able to rock and almost finish and force a draw with a dominant final round. And a lot of her struggles have come due to takedowns. Bernardo scored an early takedown and won that round. She did. Reneau was able to sweep her. She tacked off her back. She submitted McMahon off her back. But still, she's given up some takedowns and spent too much time on her back at times. Betch Koheda had a lot of success controlling her on the cage, slowing her down, out-muscling her, and really, shut down Reneau along the wall for prolonged periods in that fight. Reneau, she's very effective when she closes the gap behind her punches. She'll throw knees in the inside. Again, she has struggled with the positional battle. But she does things at range very technically that I like. She keeps her chin down. She keeps good pressure on. Lots of head movement. Works in and out. She'll change angle. She'll throw a left jab. She'll jab to the body. She'll pump her right hand in there as well. And that's what she popped and hurt McMahon with to change that fight. Her kicks at range are also decent. She'll throw a push kick to the face, the body. She'll throw those round kicks to the body. And that head kick, she threw a head kick that hurt Koheda that changed that fight in an instant in the third round and brought her back into it. Almost won at the fight. Certainly prevented her from losing it. But the big thing is with Reneau, she's used big moments versus opponents to rally and overcome early deficits, and that's a strategy I don't like, and I've talked about this before. And you look at these two girls, both girls have good finishing rates, 5 wins by knockout, both girls have 3 wins by submission, identical records there. On the scorecards, though, Kat 1 and 2 decisions, Marion 1 and 3, so they don't have great records in fights that go longer, so you wonder which one of those is gonna cost them here. Overall, Kat has faced better competition. She had a very close fight against Ketlin Vieira, and she was coming off a 20-month layoff. Here, she's returning after just 4 months, which is a much better scenario. Look for Zingano to push Marion back, use the clinch, land takedowns. Reneau's given up 9 takedowns over her last 4 fights, and has given up at least 1 takedown in each of her last 6. And if Kat gets on top of you, she's going to be in trouble. Kat needs to be aggressive, throw combinations, kicks, then close the distance. Don't let Reneau get comfortable. That's crucial. This is going to be a close fight. I think it's going to be a scrappy and entertaining fight. And I think Kat, taking a step back in competition, she shows up here. My prediction is Kat Zingano to defeat Marion Reneau by decision, possibly split, but I'll take Kat. Fight number 2 in the main card takes place in the UFC's featherweight division and features the 12th-ranked Myles Fury Jury, 17-2-0, taking on the former top-ranked and title challenger and returning Chad Money Mendes with a current record of 17 wins and 4 losses. Now, Mendes is returning after a 31-month layoff due to a USADA suspension. He had lost 3 of 4 prior to taking some time away, but you look at the guys he's lost to: Jose Aldo, Conor McGregor, and Frankie Edgar, all the top guys in the division at the time. His last 2 losses, though, were finished, losses that he was finished in. The one win he did in that span was a stoppage win over Ricardo Lama, so he's fighting top of the food chain opponents before his suspension. For Myles Fury Jury, he dropped to featherweight, was submitted instantly by Charles Oliveira, but then TKO wins over Mike De La Torre, and a solid decision win over Rick Glenn. He wanted to say Kevin Glenn over Rick Glenn as well. So he seems to have got things going in his new weight class. Jury, as I said, former lightweight, 4 inches taller than Mendes. He'll have a sizable 7-inch reach advantage, and he's the younger man by 3 years. And Mendes comes into this fight, he's 33 years old. He was 30 the last time we saw him, and for a lighter division, you're starting to get up there when you start getting close to that mid-30 range. I think Mendes has got some gas left in the tank, but it's starting to get up there. And we have some big questions for the situation. How will the layoff impact Chad Mendes? That's a long time to be away. Additionally, the division's changed significantly, and is it just him being away has saved him from his own downfall? Aldo has fallen out. Frankie Edgar has been passed, even though he's in line for a title shot. Cub Swanson, the guy he beat to get that title shot, is losing his competition. That's moving past him. Ricardo Lamas in a similar situation. The division is changing. Where does it figure in with Chad Mendes? When you look at Mendes, what made the guy great? What made him an effective fighter? Well, obviously it's his wrestling. NCAA Division I wrestler. When he was at the height of his run, he was landing big takedowns. 7 against Nick Lentz, 3 against Clay Guida. He only landed 1. Before the first Aldo fight, he landed 20. And going back to WEC, he landed 27 takedowns over 6 fights. That's a impressive run. He landed 4 against Conor McGregor before gassing out and suffering from that and giving in because of that injury. So that led to him losing that fight. But again, what makes him effective. On the flip side, he landed 2 takedowns in over 2 Aldo fights. He landed 1 takedown. He landed none in the very short Frankie Edgar fight. And if he can't finish his opponent, and he's got some big power in his hands when he does land, he needs to get on top and he needs to out-wrestle them. That's crucial. So then that brings in the flip scenario. How good is Jury's takedown defense? 50% overall. Never been taken down more than once in a fight. Rick Glenn went 0 for 4 in his last performance looking for takedowns. Again, Rick Glenn, Chad Mendes, not the same MMA wrestler, so that's worth noting. We did see Glenn catch a kick, though, and take Jury down, but the reason it wasn't counted as a takedown is Jury instantly swept it. The scenario wasn't over. As they hit the mat, Jury swept him and rolled into top position, so they didn't count as a takedown. We've seen Jury offer some pretty good counter strikes on takedown attempts, either just being able to separate, roll out of shots, or defend and land strikes and punish you for looking there. The other question in this fight is, how does the size impact this scenario and the distance management factor in for Mendes? You know, most of his opponents are between 5'7" and 5'8". The last time he fought a guy that was close to Jury's size was Darren Elkins. Elkins is 5'10" with a 71-inch reach advantage. Jury is 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. Jury is 5'10" with a 73-inch reach. But and you know, Mendes won that fight. Elkins is not the same fighter as Jury. Elkins wanted the same thing Mendes is, to get in close, to mix it up, and to attack and engage and possibly look for wrestling opportunities. Jury's probably going to be something, it's most definitely going to be something different than that. And if Mendes can't take him down with consistency, can he overcome the reach and longer strikes of Jury? I don't know if he can. Jury uses a good jab. He's got long kicks to the body. And one thing he does very effectively, we've seen it a couple occasions, he steps to the side and then throws hooks. He steps out to the side and lands these counter hooks that really catch guys off balance, because he's not there, and boom, he's still hitting me though, and that's an interesting scenario that can really pile up some points and do some damage. You know, he really worked the body over with Rick Glenn with body kicks and punches, and that was setting up the overhand right and the right head kick, and that was something we saw. And then he actually landed a jumping knee, because we saw Glenn defending the body shots, and boom, in comes Jury with the knee, and that's important, mixing things up. Additionally, Jury's coming off his first 15-minute fight at featherweight. Huge improvements. It should help his comfort level, knowing what his body can do over 15 minutes. It was a grueling fight. It was a good fight, a dominant fight. Lots going against Mendes here. Massive layoff, his age, the size. He's been stopped twice. Also went through a war with Jose Aldo in his most recent action. You know, Jury has to stay off his back, watch his neck during any scrambles. I think Mendes has the power, but is he going to be able to land with consistency? I don't think so. He needs 3 to 4, possibly 5 takedowns in this fight to win it, or a finish. I think Jury has too many weapons at this point. He'll eat Mendes up at distance, punish him, or make it too hard for him to close the distance and close that gap to get in wrestling range. Jury could stop him with counters or with that, watch that right high kick. But my prediction is Myles Jury to defeat Chad Mendes by TKO. The third fight in the main card takes place in the UFC's welterweight division and is an excellent bit of matchmaking. Really looking forward to this fight, as Rude Boy Randy Brown 10-2-0 takes on the hybrid Niko Price, 11 wins, 1 loss, and 1 no contest. Now, Brown's coming off a high-profile win over Mickey Gall. Fairly high-profile victory. He's a winner of 3 of his last 4, and he's 5-2 in the UFC. Price submitted George Sullivan in his last performance as a rebound from his first career loss. He is 3-1 inside the octagon with a single no contest that he had won, which put him at 4-1, but the fight was overturned. Physically, Brown 6'3". He is 3 inches taller than Niko Price, who's fairly tall for the division at 6 feet tall. Brown will have a 2-inch reach advantage, and he is the younger fighter by a year. Now, this matchup shows how deep the welterweight division is. As these guys, they're talented, they're dangerous. They're not even close to being ranked fighters. I wouldn't think. I wouldn't put them in the top 20. And they might be in the top 25. But it shows how good this division is. I actually would love to see the UFC expand the rankings to the top 20. Now, when you look at Brown, there has been a common struggle throughout his UFC run. It's been his grappling and wrestling defense. He had a couple takedowns against Graves, gave up a couple takedowns and was submitted. Against Bilal Muhammad, he gave up a couple of takedowns. Eric Montano scored a couple of takedowns on him as well before he finished him. And, of course, Mickey Gall won that fight from top position. Mickey Gall won round 2 against him in top position. So Brown is clearly vulnerable on the floor. Is he getting better? Yes. But still, it's an area that his opponents can or at least will attempt to exploit en route to victory. Now, Price, not known for his wrestling. He's a BJJ brown belt. He only had 1 win by submission prior to coming to the UFC. He now has 2. He has 3 overall. He recognized in his debut that Brandon Thatch was incredibly vulnerable on the mat, took him down, submitted him. George Sullivan, also vulnerable on the mat, took him down, submitted him. Will he take a similar approach here? it's very interesting that he's been able to exploit two fighters that have had issues on the mat. His only UFC loss came against Vicente Luque, who's a very dangerous fighter, who I would say is on the cusp of being ranked. I don't think he is at this point. He might be. And the thing with Luque is he's dangerous everywhere, and that kind of took away Price's ability to say, hey, look, I'm going to strike with you, or I'm going to take you down because that's where you're weakest. Luque is dangerous everywhere. I'd say his one area of vulnerability is his gas tank, if you can push him deep, and Price wasn't able to. Now, Brown did show improved offensive ground game against Gull, held top control against him, hurt him with some big elbows, and arguably won rounds 1 and 3 from top position. But, is that something he wants to do, or does he want to stand striker with Niko Price? Neither fighter is an overwhelming volume striker. Both average under 3 significant strikes per minute, but Price gets hit over 4. Well, Brown gives up just 2.4. So you see Price, in there getting tagged a few more times than Brown is, and that could be crucial here. Brown, I would think, has the edge in striking, and the size and reach will give issues for Price, who's normally the longer fighter, and that's going to create. And Price just gets hit way too much. And Brown hits too hard to get tagged with on a regular basis without seeing the damage pile up. Price, he'll need to work his wrestling better than he ever has in any previous fight, and that's landing 3 to 4 takedowns in a fight. Probably one per round, maybe one more in a round where he has to get him down twice, and I just don't see it happening unless he can get the submission. Brown's been a difficult guy to handle on the mat at times as he gets better. I think, again, he continues to show improvement here, and my prediction is Randy Brown to defeat Niko Price. I'm going to take Brown by knockout. I think he catches him coming in and finishes him off. Fight number 4 is a fight we talked about in the my pre-ramble, as we are in the UFC's featherweight division, as Dennis the Menace Bermudez, 17-8-0, takes on the Gladiator, Rick Glenn, with a current record of 20 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. Now, Bermudez is a guy, you look back at him, he won 7 consecutive fights, but he has now lost 5 of his last 7, including 3 in a row. He's had 3 finishes and 2 split decisions during that struggle, so definitely it's been a tough time for him. For Glenn, he lost his UFC debut at lightweight. He took on short notice. He won back-to-back decisions and then lost a fairly wide decision to Myles Jury. Physically, Glenn's 6 feet tall. I knew he was going to say that. He's 6 inches taller than Dennis Bermudez. He'll have a 4-inch reach advantage, and he's the younger man by 3 years. Now, Bermudez's last 6 wins, he's landed 27 combined takedowns. He's landed at least 2 in each fight. In each one of those matchups, he put at least 2 takedowns on his opponent. In his last 5 losses, he's landed a grand total of 3 takedowns while giving up 7. And including in that span, he went 3 for 26 on his shots. So it's not like he's got away from wrestling. He's still trying. He's just not been there. So you see, that's a key to defeating him, is shutting down his wrestling. Now, his striking certainly keeps him active and keeps him in fights. He's got a very busy jab. He'll double and triple it up, pump it out there, looking to press forward, engage behind it. He covers a lot of distance with that technique, and I really like it. He throws very hard low kicks. He steps in and throws and can do a lot of damage. He needs to up the volume. He's got the type of low kicks where if he lands them with consistency, he's going to take some guys out. And again, he has to keep himself, mix it up enough that they can't time and take him out and counter, but at the same time, land those low kicks. On the inside, we saw him attempt some body lock takedowns against Andre Fili, because Fili was so tall he couldn't elevate him, couldn't get him off his feet, simply too tall. He needs to try and shoot from the outside and just use that power to bowl through opponents. He was getting taken down by Fili in that fight. Elkins took him down as well. And ultimately, Bermudez was struggling to outmuscle his opposition. And when you look at the quality of fighters Bermudez was beating when he was doing his best, he was beating lesser strikers that couldn't out-wrestle him. Hani Jason, Tetsuya Kawajiri, Clay Guida, Jimmy Hedis, Steven Seiler, these guys that he could muscle around, that he could strike better than, he could wrestle better than, he had it coming. He started to lose to guys who were better strikers who could handle his wrestling, guys like Ricardo Lamas, Jeremy Stevens, Korean Zombie, Darren Elkins, Andre Fili. You see the difference in caliber of opposition there. It's hard to make an argument that any one of those guys could be in the opposite category and was kind of stepped out of the norm. Glenn's also a southpaw, which is worth noting when you look at this matchup, which does open him up for throwing, power kicks to Bermudez, but it also opens him up for Bermudez to really tag that lead leg and really do some damage with his low kicks. Now, when you look at Rick Glenn, the guy's durable as fuck. He's got a good chin. He was hit with some super big head kicks by Felipe Nover. He gets hit a lot, but he keeps coming forward. At the same time, he's very flat-footed. He's not overly quick. Nover is having success with footwork and landing some strikes. We did see Glenn do a good job of cutting off the cage when he was pushing forward, but again, he was getting tagged a lot in the process. He ground Nover into the cage at times, but again, unable to take him down, unable to get him on his back. And, Glenn overall, he's got 5 straight decisions on the cards. He's 3-2 in that run. 4-3 overall in the scorecards. He's got 11 wins by knockout, which you wonder when a guy gets off the regional scene. I know he fought for WSOF, but when he gets off the regional scene and he stops finishing guys, does he have the tools to make the adjustment to pile up the points in case he can't put his opponent away? Ultimately, takedowns are key here for Bermudez. He needs to land a couple of score points and break him down. Bermudez has to consistently find his way to the inside, use his speed and movement, land power strikes and leg kicks. Glenn isn't that quick, and it says when he's flat-footed, opens him up to those low kicks, and because of the southpaw stance, it's going to allow Bermudez to tag him with those strikes. His jab also should be a little more effective, I would think, as he moves forward and looks to engage. I think that's going to help Bermudez close the distance. Ultimately, the key here is Bermudez putting up volume, outwork him, land the more impactful strikes. Glenn has some of the tools that other guys have had that beat Dennis, but I don't think he'll be able to employ them here because of the speed factor. Glenn has enough power to threaten Bermudez. He has to be careful because Bermudez has a bit of an iffy chin, but my prediction is Dennis Bermudez to defeat Rick Glenn by decision. We move now to the co-main event of the evening, and it's a co-main event that I kind of looked at and went, really? This is the co-main event? Okay, it's in the UFC's welterweight division. A Super Sage Northcutt 10-2-0 takes on the Barbarian Zach Ottow, the current record of 16 wins and 5 losses. Now, Otto's coming off a TKO win over Mike Pyle. He has alternated wins and losses in the UFC, currently holding a record of 3-2, and obviously currently in line for a defeat based on those stats. For Northcutt, he's coming off back-to-back wins. He's a winner of 3 of his last 4. He lost the fight by submission to Mickey Gall. All 3 of his wins in this span have come by decision. The last one was close, possibly a gift. A lot of people thought that Thibaut Gauthier should have got the victory over him, and I had Northcutt, and I thought he lost that matchup. It's a very interesting matchup here, though. We have a hyped, very flashy young prospect versus a skim milk bland type fighter who's not young. He's not old by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just no one's talking about Ottow as a future contender or a current contender or anything like that. Physically, Northcutt 1 inch taller. Ottow will have a 1 inch reach advantage. Sage is the younger fighter by 10 years. And it's worth noting that age thing here. When you look at Zach Ottow's victories, his 3 UFC victories, has wins over guys who are older. At the time of beating them, Josh Berkman was 36, Kichi Kutamoto 36, and Mike Pyle 42. Sage Northcutt is 22. So that gives you an interesting little glance at what Zach Ottow's been doing. But we can also go the other way and look at this. There have been 5 men that Sage has beat in the UFC. When you look at those records, including their loss to Sage, they are combined 3-13. Ottow has the same number of UFC victories as all 5 of those men combined, and he's done it over some, especially Mike Pyle and Berkman, some very accomplished North American-based fighters. Now, Northcutt, another thing worth looking at, fighting is taking place at welterweight. He is 0-2 in fighting at welterweight, and he was finished in both of those by submission to Brian Barberena and Mickey Gall. So that's worth noting as well. Can he finally get off the schneid and get a victory at welterweight, or is it just too much for him? Ottow's path to victory does line up very well with Sage's biggest weakness. 10 of Ottow's 16 victories have come by submission. He is a BJJ black belt. Now, he hasn't showcased overwhelming wrestling, just landing 2 takedowns overall and a 33% completion rate. But Sage has been taken down 13 times over his last 6 fights and submitted twice. We know that area is something. And if Zach Ottow doesn't come out looking to press him into the cage and take him down, his coaches should be fucking fired. The big question is, can Ottow close the gap and get his hands on Northcutt? Can he move forward, not take damage, and put him down? Northcutt has a lot of flaws, but he is fast, he is explosive, he offers a wide variety of striking techniques, and that can be difficult to get a read on and difficult to engage. Ottow's striking is serviceable to decent. He's got some good leg kicks. His punching game's decent. He was dropped by 1 straight hand from Li Jingliang, which is certainly concerning, and I don't like that. Because if Sage lands a big shot, will that put him down? Northcutt's been working at Team Alpha Male, which you would think at this point would be working to improve his wrestling, both offensively and defensively. It's helping him to maybe mitigate things a little bit and help him get up and not be as useless when he hits the mat, but in a defensive position at least. But is he all the way there? I don't think so. If Ottow can get him down, it's his world. Sage should have a wide advantage on the feet, but I say wide. I don't know if it's that wide, because the threat of being taken down seems to keep Sage backed up a little bit. He got clipped a couple times in his last fight and kind of wobbled, and again, Ottow's a little bread and butter, or simple, with his offense, but I think it can be effective here. Northcutt has not been dominant in his recent fights, 3 straight decisions against fairly low-level competition. He struggled at welterweight significantly. I think Ottow's going to use his size. He's going to clinch. He's going to force him into the cage. He's going to drag him down. I don't want to get a lot of flack for this prediction. He's going to put together a similar performance to what Gauthier did, where it's going to be clinch. serviceable strikes from range, clinch, takedown, grind him out, keep on top, beat him up. But it's going to be more definitive here, and my prediction is Zach Ottow to defeat Sage Northcutt. I'll take Ottow by decision. And now it's time for the main event prediction of the evening. We're in the UFC's heavyweight division. It's the 7th-ranked junior Zingano dos Santos, 18-5-0, takes on the debuting 16-101 Blagoy Ivanov. Now, JDS is coming off a title fight loss to Stipe. It was his 3rd straight defeat by knockout. All those losses coming in his last 5 appearances, but he is returning after a 14-month layoff. So you say that's probably a good thing when you're coming off a bit of a run like that. You take some time away, you recalibrate, you figure some stuff out, you get your mind right, you get healthy. That's probably a good thing. There is potential for a post-title fight letdown scenario, as we just saw fucking Francis Ngannou go through, where he just fought. He didn't fight. I saying fight would be a dishonesty to everybody else who's fought. And Ngannou definitely did not fight in that fight. He kind of stood there and waited for it and hoped to be handed a decision, or Lewis would fall over. So yeah, that thing's real, dude. Post-title fight letdowns, trying to build yourself back up to get a shot after losing, it's hard. Top of the mountain, bottom of the mountain, it's difficult. Now, Blagoy, he has won 5 consecutive fights. He went 5-0 in WSOF and 6-1 in Bellator. So those are 2 regional, not regional, but just below the top level organizations. And he had a hell of a run in those 2. He has wins over Sean Jordan, Josh Copeland, Derek Meeman, LeVar Johnson, Shmelamio Rama. I can never say his name properly. His only loss in that span, and the only career loss, was a submission to Alexander Volkov in I believe it was the finals of a Bellator tournament. The guy has had a good run. It's as good a resume as you can have outside the UFC when fighting heavyweight, pretty much. Physically, junior, 6'4", 5 inches taller, with a 4-inch reach advantage. Ivanov is 2 years younger. Junior dos Santos, it's worth noting, has fought just once a year since 2014, not super active. So Blagoy, certainly the more active fighter. That's definitely an advantage for him, despite making his debut here. Junior's taken some serious beatings, especially by Cain Velasquez, and it's worth noting that Blagoy is spending some time at AKA, training with Cain, training with DC, and that's a huge thing for him. It's going to be a confidence boost. It's going to be guys, he'll be exposed to fighters and trainers who have fought and beaten Junior dos Santos. Whether he has the tools or not to execute it, I don't know. And you look at Ivanov, another scenario here. He's the World Series of Fighting and then Professional Fight League now heavyweight champ. He defended it 4 times. He had a good run. But you look at some of the guys that have come over: Marlon Moraes, Justin Gaethje, David Branch, Rick Glenn, Jessica Aguilar. There's been some mixed results. Moraes obviously making the most noise, but it took him a little bit to get going and get in it. Gaethje's been fun but disappointing for the most part. Branch has had mixed results. Glenn really not coming with a lot of accolades coming in, and Aguilar just never has got anything going. She'll try and get it on the prelims for this card. So you wonder, where's Ivanov sit in there? The heavyweight division is absolutely open for opportunities. One fight, he throws a short uppercut, and against Jordan, he landed that short uppercut nicely, followed by a flurrying ground and pound to take him out. He throws a lot of single strikes. He was looking to counter in a very uneventful fight against Alan Carr in his last matchup. He's struggling with the distance at times. He was having trouble reaching him until he committed forward, until his opponent committed forward, and Ivanov was chasing but not cutting off the cage. I don't like that. He didn't look dominant against low-level competition. If he couldn't knock them out, it was a closer fight than it needed to be. And this is a big debut opportunity for him, but it's also a huge step up in competition. For Junior dos Santos, the guy might not be elite anymore, but he can still handle a lot of the division as far as I'm concerned. I think we saw that in the Ben Rothwell fight, even though that seems like it was ages ago. He moves laterally very well. He keeps that right hand loaded, punches to the body as well. He'll target the head, and that can open up the body, or the body opens up the head shots. He'll move away and circle out under pressure, and he engages when he wants to, and I like that. He's at his best when he's jabbing to the body, working combinations, and then throws that jab power strike. He also throws a nice overhand right with power, and I really like that left uppercut shovel hook combination that he'll mix in, and his kicks are an effective weapon if he throws enough of them. We've seen him mix them in, and they can be devastating. He does have a tendency to bring his hands back low after throwing, which can open him to counter strikes, but again, can Ivanov reach him? I don't know. The key to beating Junior dos Santos has been pressure, moving forward, shooting, clinching, lots of volume, and mixing up and keeping the pressure on him. Ivanov's going to struggle with that. I don't think he poses... he has the power to change the fight with one punch, possibly, if he can land, especially if he catches Junior coming in. How is JDS's chin after getting stopped again? Time will tell as far as we're concerned there, but I think that time away was a good thing. I think JDS is going to use a lot of movement here. He's going to stay away from Ivanov. He's going to circle away. He's going to utilize that jab and kicks to keep him on the outside, eventually setting up those power strikes with that right hand. And my prediction is Junior Dos Santos to defeat Blagoy Ivanov by knockout. So those are my 6 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 133. All of my preliminary picks and the bet packs, as per usual, will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Again, I've made a couple changes. I'm switching things up a little bit. Honestly, I think I was being swayed by the betting odds too often, and I was doing too much. I was doing my own research, and then I was doing, I don't call it counter research, but going and listening to other people's breakdowns and reading other people's predictions on certain sites that I usually go to, or certain videos I watch. And I think that was swaying me in directions that I was uncomfortable with. I think one of the big ones, for example, I was all over Drakkar close to beat Lando Venata, and then I read some stuff, and people skewed my own personal opinion about it, and ultimately it led me to picking Venata, even though I really felt close was the better fighter. And hey, it backfired, and not like it would have made a huge difference that night because things were shitty on their own. But quite honestly, if I find when I get back to it, where I just look at fights, I break down fighters, I watch footage, I go to my old notes, that's when I do my best. Not when I'm looking at the odds, going, oh, this guy's a favorite, so I should probably lean his way to start with. Or when I look at this guy, these 3 different predictors also picked this person. So the more voices aren't always more voices, more heads in the situation aren't always better. So I know this is a long prediction show. I wanted to get back in things. It took me a little while to get this posted. A couple things come up. But, hey, I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, take care, guys, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Hi.